I'm a full-time working mom to two amazing boys. I'm Gina Stevenson, and I am a miraculous mom.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education. And I'm so glad that you guys are here. I hope you were able to check out mine and Vito's episode last week, answering your questions all about our first couple years of marriage and whether we had the 2-year itch, how parenthood is going, and when we plan on having more babies. It was so much fun having him on. This week we have on Tammin Sursok, and I had a total mom brain fart moment last week. I said, hey, next week we're having on somebody who's pregnant for the first time and blah, blah, blah. None of that is true. I don't know what I was thinking. Having some real mom brain podcast moments on here. So just keeping it real. We are having Tammin Sursok on, and she's not pregnant. She has 2 kids, and we have such an amazing conversation. I love how she just keeps it real and is just a delight to talk to. You guys probably know her from Pretty Little Liars. I'm really glad that she was able to come on. Before we begin the interview, make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening, leave us a review, and share this with your friends. And anyone that you know could benefit from it. Let me know what guests you want on, what topics. Today, we dive into some like postpartum depression and pregnancy and belly births, and just have so much fun talking about it. And I just love having you guys a part of this community. So make sure that you also join the Facebook group and join the women there talking about motherhood or whatever else. It's a safe space. And I love that we have that community. All right. Without further ado, here's Tammin Sursok. All right, everyone. I have Tammin Sursok here, and we're super excited to talk to her. Like my husband was saying last week, I told him that you were coming on, and he's like, oh my gosh, I love Pretty Little Liars. I love her. And he was so excited that I'm getting to interview you today. So we're super excited to have you on. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know that you're a busy mom of 2 and you have so much going on.
Well, thank you so much. If you hear my crazy ass family in the background, I literally just heard them like yelling at each other. And I'm like, great, this is mom life for you. You know, especially mom work-life balance. There doesn't seem to ever really be one right now. So your kids are, in the back of your Zoom calls.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like, with the whole COVID thing this last year, people just get it. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's hard though, because it's something that we've all never really experienced before. And I think we wonder why we're not good at it instead of giving ourselves grace and understanding that no one's really good at it. And we're just all doing the best we can. Yeah,
for sure. I have so much that I want to talk to you about. I feel like a lot of people who probably personally follow you tend to play villains on TV.
Yeah, I know. I must have a villain face.
Yeah, I don't know.
A resting bitch face is what it looks like.
But when you follow you are so funny. You are so real. So like that's kind of the cool thing with social media is you see, TV you, who's this more serious character, and then you're like, oh, that's not her at all. She's just a really great actress.
Well, I don't know. My husband might think I'm more of a villain than you might. But, I've always been, I don't know if it's the Australian in me, but Australians have a really good way of poking fun at themselves and not taking things too seriously. And I'm not saying other parts of the world don't, but it just seems to be sort of in our makeup. It's like the Aussie, they call it pay yourself out. Instead of putting other people down, we like to put ourselves down. And that self-deprecating humor, I think, has gotten me very far in my life. And that's how I met my husband. And I do like to play on that because, I've realized that even through comedy, we all have a story to tell, and we all are going through something, and we all have that universal feeling of fear and pain and all of that. And I think it's a really great way to connect us through comedy, and that is why I use my platform to make people not only feel, but also laugh, because, I think that we seem to inject humor when we're going through some of the most tragic things. And especially during this pandemic is when I really started to say, I'm going to start doing skits and doing funny things because I want people to feel better, and we're all going through this collective tragedy. And I want them to wake up in the morning and go, oh, I'm excited to look at Tammin's feed because it's going to make me feel better. And so that's kind of the genesis of why I started doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I was watching your the tampon song video earlier. That lady who did that song was just genius, but your video is hilarious.
So genius. I'm like, why don't I just dress up because my husband and I work together. We write together and we create shows. And I thought to myself, like, well, why don't I just dress up as a giant tampon at the end of this? Yeah. Because how much further can you get to like amplify the video? Because in comedy, it's about threes, it's about one thing's funny and then the next thing's supposed to be funnier. And then I'm like, how do you make it the funniest? And I was like, let's just dress up as a tampon with the resources that we have at home. So we had, piece of cardboard and some toilet paper, and we made a giant tampon.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. So I would love, like I said, I have so many different things I want to chat with you about. One of them kind of going back to when you were traveling around the US with your kids and you got to go to some really cool places. How was it road tripping with children?
Oh man. We all show our highlight reels, and that's something that I try to take the veil off, especially for social media, on social media. But it's really hard, man. Like, it's hard to travel with young children. It's hard to travel in general, but with young children who, need to pee all the time and they need snacks all the time and they don't want to be in the car, understandably, for that long. So it was difficult, but it was also magic. And I feel that it's through difficult moments that we really do find the magic. It's almost like you need to feel the fear of doing something and do it anyway, and then you can come out on the other side. And that's what I felt like with road tripping. There are some experiences that we have had with our kids that I will never forget and that will be etched in my memory for the rest of my life. One of them being seeing the Badlands in South Dakota. I didn't even know that topography like that even existed in America. I felt like I was in another world. And to see that magic through my children's eyes, it made all the anxiety and all the fear and all the negative self-talk that I had in my head about doing this road trip, it made it all worthwhile. And that's what I do believe in life. I feel like, I've been through so much in my life. I'm sure other people, everyone has been through so much. And if you look back on your life, it's really those hard moments that you really did change. And you had incredible experiences that you would never take back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're huge national park people. But
yes,
we have a little kid now, and we've talked about, where we live. So I live outside of Chicago. I used to live in Vegas, and there's so many amazing national parks close by. Where we're at now, there's not a lot. So we would have to road trip. And I'm like, she's too little right now, but, it's like, how do you make that work? Do you have like any tips for doing that with kids?
We brought a portable toilet because of COVID, not because we were smart, not because we were road tripping and we thought, oh, this would be a good idea. I just didn't want my daughter, we were very careful. I have to really say that we didn't travel America. We traveled America in October when all the cases were very low. And also we did it in a way that was safer than what we were even doing in Los Angeles because we didn't see anyone. We were going to places that were completely isolated. We never went to a restaurant. We only stayed in Airbnbs that had been no one was allowed to stay in them for 2 weeks prior. So the way that we did it, we felt very safe and we were very safe. But we brought a portable toilet because we didn't want her going to the bathroom or touching anything. And that was like a godsend. We were able to pull over to the side of the road, and she's very private. My 7-year-old, we all had to shut our eyes. But she was able to use the bathroom. So that was like really great for us. And we changed our car up to like a Chrysler minivan. Actually a Chrysler, like a van. So a minivan, it's like a van with three different sections, 3 different rows. And they had TVs in the car. And for me, I'm definitely that mom who's like less electronics, not so much junk food. But I think when you're doing things like that, when you're traveling with small kids, I really believe that your mentality should be all bets are off. I really do. Because I've done it the other way with no iPads in the car. And I remember pulling over to the side of the road and screaming and like popping open a bottle of wine because I just couldn't get, I wasn't driving. I was in the side on the passenger side, but because it can get really overwhelming with kids just screaming the whole time. So I will say that devices saved us, because some days we were traveling 10 hours and I don't understand it, but kids can watch Sophia the First for 10 hours and it does not faze them. And I think that that's kind of awesome when you're trying to go on a road trip.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a good plan. I feel like I heard about the portable toilet one other place and I can't remember where. And that's kind of a genius idea, especially for
also food. I would say also snacks. I would say, for the amount of time your kids ask for snacks, triple it.
Yeah.
Because all they wanted to do was eat in the car. I was like, we can't eat any more food. But snacks for sure. And you know what? And a sense of humor. God, there were some horrible moments, but man, there were some amazing moments,
Yeah.
There were times I wanted to take my eyeballs out. And then there were times where I was like, this is magic. And that's life. Like life is all the stuff, life is made up of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is for sure. I loved kind of reading about kind of your birth stories a little bit and how you, again, kind of keep everything so real. And one thing that you wrote that I really resonated with was about the due dates. When everybody's asking, when are you due? When are you due? When are you due?
I'm very angry about due dates.
I do too, because I'm a birth doula. And so I don't really believe in them. So, when everybody would ask me when I was due, I tried to avoid answering that as much as possible.
Yeah, of course.
Because then everybody's like, hey, it's your due date. Hey, it's your due date,
Yeah.
But I just loved what you had to say about that. Just kind of how babies are going to come when they're supposed to. Some come early, some right on time, and some a little bit later.
I mean, look, I did not feel that way with my first kid. I was like, I'm due on this date and I'm so excited. And on the 17th of October, I'm going to have a baby. And then she was 10 pounds and then the cord was wrapped around her neck and then she was breached. And then we had a scheduled C-section on the 8th of October. And I think the entire experience of my first daughter's birth made me feel like such a failure. It made me feel like I was worthless. And I realized that we have put so much pressure on women and pregnant women about everything, about their birth stories, about if they use an epidural or if they don't use an epidural. I mean, who the F cares? If you want pain medication, great. If you don't, great. If you breastfeed, great. If you don't, great. I think supporting the woman is supporting everyone's choice to choose. I mean, if we want to sit here and pretend that like we are all about like women power and we're all supporting women's rights, then it should be anything that they choose to do for their body. And I think what happened after my first baby is I felt like such a failure because I'd had all this noise from the outside world about what I should be doing and the mother I should be and why couldn't I breastfeed because I had such a hard time breastfeeding and all the things I was doing wrong. That for my second one, I was like, no, stop telling me that my baby is going to be born on this date, because I'd had so many miscarriages and I was afraid that, in a way, it was probably fear. That's probably why I was upset about it. But I was also afraid that I might lose her. I bled through my half of my pregnancy with my second daughter, and I'd already had 3 miscarriages, and I'd birthed, a fetus that was almost not a fetus because it was so big at that point. And I was like, I'm so sick of us feeling pressure all the time to be on our due dates or, birth a certain way or breastfeed a certain way. And so by that time I was like, so when's your due date? I'm like, I don't know my due date. I don't know if this baby is going to be born at 30 weeks. I don't know if this baby is going to be born at all. I don't know if this baby is going to be born late. All I know is what my body's going to do. And that's how it's going to be. So I don't know if the narrative is like, let's stop asking people when the baby's due. Maybe the narrative is like, how are you feeling? I don't know. I don't even know what the right thing to say is here, because everyone wants to know when the baby's due. Maybe you say like September is due. Or maybe like I think it's going to be due in September, because I don't really know what the right answer is. But I just know I wish people asked me like, how are you feeling, more than, when's that baby due?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask, especially because there is so much kind of surrounding it. You know, people feeling excited, anxious. If you're dealing with loss, that's something I can relate to too, and especially detaching during pregnancy because of the fear of loss. And I feel like for me, it even took after she was born, like almost a couple months old for me to start to really connect. Like how was that experience for you?
I had no real connection with my second baby when I was pregnant because I had birthed babies that didn't make it. And I couldn't go through that trauma again. And so I protected myself from the minute she, you know, when we found out we were pregnant for the 5th time, whatever it was, I like threw the pregnancy test at my husband and I said, see, we're pregnant again. And he was like, okay. It wasn't this beautiful kumbaya, you know, like it was with my first daughter, because I'd been pregnant at that point for 2 years without a baby. I just kept every time we would try to get pregnant, I would be pregnant and then I would lose the baby. And it would happen for like 3 months, then 4 months, then 2 months, then whatever it was. And when I was 11 weeks with Lennon, I woke up covered in blood, like almost from my neck down. I don't even know how there could be so much blood. It wasn't like getting your period. It was like I was having another miscarriage. And I remember it was 5 a.m. in the morning and my husband was like, just go back to sleep. And I was like, I can't. And we drove to the our OBGYN who opened at 9 o'clock and we just waited in the car. And they put the ultrasound on me and then they were like, she's perfect still. And I still didn't really connect because I was so afraid that like I was going to lose it. We were supposed to go to Hawaii. This was pre-pandemic, obviously. And my husband was like, let's go anyway. You know, let's go anyway. And I bled through that entire trip, the entire flight. And then we got tested to see if the baby had any abnormalities. And the test came back inconclusive, which was, we don't know if she does or not. It just means that there's no information. So we didn't really know what we were expecting. We didn't know how this baby was going to turn out. And then I wanted a natural birth when I started to get to 30 weeks, 32 weeks, 35 weeks. I really wanted a VBAC, a vaginal birth after C-section. And the doctor just said the baby has turned, because she was breech too. She said the baby has turned, but I'm telling you, and he's a great doctor and he's all about women's choices. He said, my gut is telling me you need another C-section. And I was like, but everyone on like social media is doing all these beautiful home births and I have a doula and everything's going to be perfect, right? And he's like, I'm telling you, she's not dropping. There's something wrong. You have to have a C-section on the 17th of January. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And I woke up in like a sweat on the 10th of January. And I said, I have to have a C-section. Like something is telling me that I have to have a C-section. My husband's like, what do you mean? I was like, I have a sixth sense. Like I have to have a C-section. My first C-section was very traumatic. I reacted to the drugs that they gave me. I thought I was going to die. I had to go back into that again. I had the C-section. I thought I was going to die again. My blood pressure gets extremely low with that, whatever they put in your spine, I guess spinal block. And she came out almost 10 pounds like my first daughter. And she was like perfect. She was 10 fingers and toes, screamed the minute she came out, thick, dark hair, big lips. Nothing was wrong with her. Nothing. She came out fighting for this world. And they put her on my chest and the doctor said, if you hadn't had that C-section in about 30 minutes, she would have been in your stomach. You would have had a uterine rupture. He said, if you had laughed too hard, your baby would have ended up in your stomach. If your daughter had jumped on you a week ago, your baby would have ended up in your stomach. And he said, and the only symptoms of a uterine rupture is death. for me and the baby. I'm not saying this because obviously you're a doula, and I totally believe in home birth. I do. I believe in home birth, but I also believe that there are certain candidates who are perfect for home births and people like myself who are not, who have had 2 10-pound babies, both breached for most of the pregnancy, and a doctor who was at the top of his game, who I trusted, who I went against, that could have really changed our lives, and maybe we wouldn't have been here. But I think what we are meant to do as mothers and women is we're meant to get all the information, and then we make the decisions that are right for us and our families and our bodies, and we don't judge other people for anything that they decide. Because I know that people look at me and think that a C-section was an easy way out. I'm sorry. C-sections are effing hard. They're really hard. And you don't get to hold your baby really for weeks until you've had a C-section. And I know vaginal births are hard too. I'm just saying no one gets off scot-free. You know, everyone has to go through the pain, whether it's vaginal birth pain, whether it's tearing, whether it's C-section. It's painful. Birth is painful. And I just believe that we should be so much more understanding and give so much more women and mothers grace. You know, I saw this TikTok the other day, and this beautiful mom was dancing. She's like, I got to dress like a mom today. And she's like 6 foot, stunning, size 2. There was so much hate from other mothers who, and again, I don't look like that, but I thought, like, why are we bringing each other down so that we feel better about ourselves? Like, we don't have to do that. To feel better about ourselves, we have to be inclusive, and we have to respect all women and all choices. You know, it's, you know, and I've only really discovered the power of being a woman, I think, after I had my child. My power was there before I had kids, but I didn't really realize how truly remarkable we are as women until I created life inside me.
And potentially could have lost yours because of it.
Oh, yeah. And I chose, after I felt like I almost died my first child, like the C-section part, I decided to do it again. That's what's so incredible about women, is you're like, oh, that was a traumatic experience. Let's do it again for the betterment of my family.
Yeah. I love what you were saying about, like, I couldn't agree more. I feel like you just need to have the information and then make the best decision for yourself. And I think that you do get that motherly intuition or sixth sense. And there does need to be a healthy balance of your intuition and guidance with a provider, because, you know, there are cases too where your intuition could be like, no, I can do it. And the provider's like, listen, like, you are at risk, you know, and I get, you might feel that way, but, you know, here's what's going down, and here are the potential risks. And, you know, and I think that being a doula, there's a lot of stereotypes with that too, because I just gave birth to my first daughter, and my husband and I had gone back and forth on what our options were, and like birthing during COVID and all this stuff. And we had talked about a home birth. And I know statistically, about 30% of first-time moms transfer to the hospital during a home birth. And so I'm like, I would rather just be there for me, instead of trying to transfer during labor, during COVID, during whatever, you know, and I work with I actually am employed at the hospital. I'm a doula there. So I know the people there, and I felt comfortable. And birth never goes as planned. I ended up getting an epidural, and I didn't plan on it. And I struggled with that decision as well. But because of the pressure, I feel like, of the birthing community and from other women, you know, and birth is birth. It's like, whether you had a belly birth or medicated or unmedicated, there's no,
had a baby. Right.
And there's not a gold medal for, like, you know, you get a gold medal because you had no drugs, like, you know.
And no one even, you know, I find this idea of judging people, I find fascinating. And I find, I guess the word is irritating. I don't understand. I think judging comes from our own fear and our own self-loathing. in whatever category that is. So if I judge someone because of their body, it's probably because I don't have a good self-esteem with my body. It's like I believe that unhappiness is the fastest pipeline to hate. And I feel like if someone's unhappy, then we judge other people. And then maybe that's the disease. Maybe we need to start loving ourselves more so that we can respect other people more. Maybe that's what we need to start focusing on.
Yeah.
To respect other people's choices too. Because we have no idea what people, they always say, don't judge someone until obviously you know what they've lived through. And we don't. You can't ever know what someone's real life has been.
Yeah, that's so true. I'd love to touch on too, I know that you've been open about how you were bullied as a kid and then you dealt with an eating disorder. I'd love for you to just kind of share how you overcame that and how maybe that has changed the way that you have chosen to parent.
I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and we immigrated when I was young. I was 6 years old to Sydney, Australia. And we moved around a lot. And I think because we moved around a lot, I felt unsettled. Not from my parents. My parents gave me a lot of, sorry if my kid's screaming in the background. Tell me if that's really loud. They'll be quiet soon. It's real life, guys. Mama podcast. I think I felt unsettled. And so I turned to food. And food was my comfort for a very long time when I was growing up. When I was 6 or 7, you couldn't really tell, 8, 9. But when I started to get to like 11, 12, 13, 14, I started to gain a lot of weight. I was actually 210 pounds by the time I was 12 years old. And I didn't ever really consider myself as fat or overweight. And I say the word fat is because what people call it, not that I'm choosing to call it that. I didn't consider myself having fat on me. I felt very loved, and my parents used to think I was the most beautiful thing in the world, and they would take pictures of me, and I would dance and sing, and I would always perform, and I never, ever had body image issues. And then I remember I was 14 years old, and that's when you start to become, like puberty starts to peer its head around the corner. And I was at a school dance and I looked up and my heart started, I wrote this story down on my Instagram and my heart started pounding because for the first time I was like, wow, I'm like really into a boy. And I looked up and he looked at me and I thought like, this is it. He's going to ask me out. And he looked at me and he said, hey, you need to go to Jenny Craig. And it was the first time in my life I really thought, wow, people think I'm overweight and being overweight is bad. I don't think I ever thought, my daughter's 7 years old and she notices that certain people look this way and certain people look that way, but she doesn't connect the two, that looking this way is good and looking this way is bad. Mm-hmm. And I also teach her that, having weight on you or not having weight is just a thing. Having a few extra pounds is just a thing. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. And that was the first time I noticed, oh my gosh, like this must be bad. Being overweight must be bad. And so I decided to go on a healthy diet, which I did for about 6 months. I can even remember it now. I used to have like oatmeal in the morning and I'd have a salad for lunch and I'd have protein and vegetables for dinner, which would consist of chicken and, whatever. And I lost about 75 pounds within a couple months because again, I was very young. And then I noticed everything started changing. I started to get a lot of attention. Boys started paying attention to me. I started getting asked out on dates. And then I realized that I couldn't. And then I started freaking out because my identity was being skinny, or I was about 115 by then. Being like 110, 115, being skinny meant that I was worthy, that I was enough. And I equated the two. So I was very scared when I started to gain some weight. If I ate if I ate like some chocolate or I ate some ice cream, and I was like petrified. So I started to throw up and I started having bulimia. And in the midst of all this transformation and all this change, I got cast on a massive TV show in Australia. And I was the it girl. I was the ingenue. I did 150 magazine covers by the time I was 21 years old. I had a 3-record deal with Sony BMG. I was the face of Pepsi. I had a L'Oreal campaign all before the age of 21. And I thought that the only reason I was successful was because of my weight. So I was petrified to lose that. Mm-hmm. And because I was petrified to lose it, I starved myself for many years. I would live on rice cakes and coffee for weeks. And if I would eat something more, I would throw up. I remember being in Italy with my parents when I was 15 years old. And I had thrown up so much that like my eyes were just bleeding, you know, and my parents knew, but it was like a time when no one really talked about that stuff, you know. I lost my stomach lining. I had to have many medical procedures to like fix, you know, or like test things in my stomach because I'd lost a back tooth because of it. And then something strange happened. Like I came to the States and I met my husband, and I was 22 when I met him, 22, 23. And I was still kind of throwing up every now and then. And I looked at him, and for the first time I was happy, and I decided like, I don't want to be sick anymore. I don't want to be sick anymore. And I get a lot of young girls that say like, how do you stop having an eating disorder? There was many times I could have tried to stop, and I just couldn't. But you got to get to the point where you really want to change. Mm-hmm. And you see it with alcoholics, you see it with drug addicts, you see when people really want to change and they really want, and yes, get the support, go if you need to go into a clinic, or yes, tell your parent, whatever it is to get that support, but you have to really want it. And at that moment when I was 22, 23 years old, I really wanted it. I really wanted to not be sick anymore. And I'm not saying that I don't, you know, I have a healthy relationship with food now. But I do, every time I eat, get anxious, and it's not conscious, it's subconscious. Like I'll eat and I'll feel like stressed, and I don't know why. And I just been working with a therapist who said it's because of your past. It's like all subconscious thoughts that are telling me that it's bad or wrong, but I don't feel like it's bad or wrong, but my body's telling me it's bad or wrong. Mm-hmm. So, you know, maybe that's just something I carry with me forever, but I have a healthy relationship with food. I don't always love my body, especially post-pregnancy, because I had 2 really big babies, and I would like that to change, but I'm working on, again, the self-love part, because I feel like that is what's going to really make me better. Mm-hmm.
And the self-love, when you're loving yourself, you're teaching your kids that too.
Yes.
Showing them that
when I see my daughter, it's like I don't ever want her to feel like she's not worthy because of the way she looks or her weight. And again, it goes down to like, when did we say that a certain size was the best size? And when did we say that a certain look was the best look? And I mean, back like a long time ago, being voluptuous was the sexiest thing. And I think it's now becoming even more, we were talking about it being even more sexy. And I said to my husband, like, what would you prefer? Would you prefer this body or this body? And he said, you know, definitely, more curvy. That's what guys are into. But again, even that question, I have to ask myself, like, why am I even asking that question? Why does it matter? Why do looks matter so much? Why? They only take us so far. Like, no matter who you are, whoever's listening to this, no one is not going to get old. If you're looking at some sexy girl that you're like, oh, I wish I looked like her, she's going to get old too. Mm-hmm. You know, she's going to have her time. She's not going to have that butt or those boobs or whatever forever. Like, that is going to fade. And that is what we focus so much of our life is on what we look like instead of the people we are and the things we value and, you know, how to change the world. If we stop doing all that, if we spent money on like our world and our mental health more than our looks, I wonder what the world would look like.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Mm-hmm. 100%. Like, I know that it's important to, you know, try to be healthy and stuff, but I feel like mental health, I'm so glad that the stigma around it's kind of being broken and it's talked about more. Cause I feel like that's that's a part that I feel like your insurance should cover. Everyone should have access to. You should 100% like be able to have access to mental health.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like, don't take care of yourself. I think, you know, you can take that statement too far that I just said and say like, well, I'm not saying don't wash your face and don't take care of yourself and don't wash your hair. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this obsessiveness that we have about being 10 pounds overweight, 10 pounds this, you know, one gray hair, cellulite, things that we can't really change unless we're really going to go under the knife and take it out, which is, you know, again, if you want to do that, great. But, you know, because I've always thought like, well, maybe I'll, you know, fix my scar because of my babies or whatever. But then I think, am I actually going to be happy, or am I just going to be happy for the short period after because it looks different or whatever? But I still have to work on my mental state about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I love that the conversation kind of came here. Cause again, I feel like that this is something that all moms can relate to, because all moms, I feel like, come to that point where you really have to focus on self-love, because motherhood is hard. It gets really hard. And there's days where you're just changing diapers and cleaning up poop and dealing with tantrums, and you can't put your worth in that, because then you won't feel worthy either. So working on that self-love is so important.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, being a mom is amazing, but it's also really hard. And I think a lot of people feel lonely in motherhood because they feel like no one's talking about it. It's like sometimes you don't want to be a mom that day. And it's like, if you say that out loud, oh, you're such a bad person, everyone feels it. Everyone feels it. And if you say you don't feel it, then people are lying. You know, sometimes you don't want to be a mom. It doesn't mean you don't love your kids, and it doesn't mean they're not everything to you, but sometimes you miss your old life. Like you miss parts of yourself that you look in the mirror and like motherhood is erased. Like sometimes you go, where are you? Where am I? You know?
Yeah.
And that's just something that we all navigate differently.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. So I guess like, what is something that you do to fill up your cup a little bit in motherhood?
Exercise for me is something that I have to do for my mental health. I'm a better mother when I do yoga or I exercise. That's really important to me. And my work is really important. Ironically, my work actually makes me a better mother when I'm being successful in my own business. And, you know, it's interesting. Like, there's a stigma also for women to say, like, I like to make my own money, you know, because people go, oh my gosh, I can't say that out loud, because men have said it forever. They're like, oh, I like to make money. But when women say it, it's like, oh, it's something that's so taboo. But I like working, and I like making my own money, and I like, you know, exercising, and whatever it is, like, that makes me happy. And then I'm a better mom because of it, because I'm doing things that I enjoy as well.
Yeah. And what is something that, like, what's your favorite part of being a mom?
It's like a long pause. It's not because there's none. There's obviously like a lot.
You can name a few if you want.
The thing is, like, you know, I don't love like sitting and playing with my kids for hours. I don't, you know, I just love, this might sound weird, like I don't love doing stuff. I look, how do I put this? Making meals or whatever is like not the fun part of motherhood, you know? The fun part of motherhood is just being like having your best friends with you, you know, like just hanging out with them and being with them and showing them things and having them experience the world and just loving them. I mean, I guess it's weird, but like my favorite thing to do is just loving them. It's like something physical. It's like kissing them, holding them, smelling them, touching them. Like that's my favorite stuff to do. You know, it's not like a specific thing. Yes, I do love to travel with them, but they're at an age like when you're 2 years old, like I don't like to sit down and play games with them. Like that's like, oh my God, I love to play Legos. Like, no. I just like to be, you know, see who they're going to turn out to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool watching them discover and learn new things and start to become their own little person.
I think the best thing for me as a parent is witnessing them become people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so fun. So what exciting projects are you working on right now? I know you said that you write with your husband. Do you have anything that people can look forward to coming out?
Yes, so we have a TV show that we wrote, directed together, and I'm the lead of, called Aussie Girl. That's going to be on Pluto TV, IMDb TV, Roku. There's 10 episodes that we've done, and hopefully if this does well, we'll get a second season. We're in the middle of writing another movie. My husband has a movie that he's directing that I'm going to be in, coming out soon. We have our podcast, Women on Top. I have a blog called Bottle and Heels. Obviously, spend a lot of time creating funny skits on my Instagram and my Reels and TikTok, which takes up a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And then I'm doing a short story book that I've got 100 essays that I'm putting together. I think it's about motherhood, mayhem, womanhood, madness, all of it.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Quick question before you wrap up. Working with your husband, so when he's directing in a movie and you're in it, do you guys drive each other crazy?
We started seeing a therapist after our first time working together. And we hadn't seen one in a decade. It's hard because you're so passionate about it and you also know each other so well. The problem with working together is you'll be on set and you'll be talking to each other like you talk to each other behind closed doors, but everyone's watching you. Mm-hmm. I would say Aussie Girl was great because we co-directed, but I have a movie right now called Breaking for Whales that he directed and I'm in. It's on Amazon right now. You should check it out. Breaking for Whales. And I'm the lead of it with Tom Felton from Harry Potter and Wendy McClendon-Covey from The Goldbergs and David Koechner from Anchorman. It's great. Taylor Swift's brother's in it too. And we fought like cats and dogs because I don't like to be told what to do or controlled, because I like to control my own business. But ironically, the film's really good. So maybe it worked.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's different when different directors directing you versus your husband, And
you can't say no, director, you don't know what you're talking about, but you can say that to your husband.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Breaking for Whales. I'll have to write that one down. Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing what you're coming out with. It seems like you are a very busy woman coming out with a lot of stuff.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry we had to change this a few times.
That's okay.
Life has been crazy. Husband had COVID. It's been,
oh my gosh.
Crazy couple months.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like people just get it right now because that's just the way it is, right now, definitely. Things I feel are just all over the place. But yeah, thank you so much. Where can people find and follow you so they can stay up to date on all your stuff coming out?
I think it's official Tammin Sursok on TikTok. I didn't know that till yesterday. I was like, Tammin Sursok. So official Tammin Sursok on Instagram and on TikTok, and Tammin Sursok on Instagram. And Bottle and Heels is www.bottleandheels.com, and Women on Top is Women on Top Official. Sorry, I had to think about that. And you can find us on anywhere you find podcasts, Women on Top on Spotify and Apple iTunes, all of it.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll have all of that linked in the show notes. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on and giving us your time and energy and being so open and sharing with us. And I look forward to having the listeners listen to all of the wisdom that you shared. And I know that they can relate so much to you and just the stories and your life. And I just want to thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Yep. All right. Thanks for hanging out through the interview. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to listen to past podcasts if you haven't listened to them yet. This last year we had on amazing experts and guests and just so much information to learn. I know a lot of people have been busy because of the pandemic, or maybe your schedule has changed and you're not able to listen to podcasts as much as you could anymore. I don't know if you guys can hear Jovi in the background there. Yeah, make sure you go back and listen to the ones that you haven't had the chance to yet. Next week, we have on the non-toxic munchkin. Aida is joining us to talk about the toxins in our lives and in our home. And I have such an amazing time chatting with her. I learned so much. Did get a little bit stressed out about all the toxins in my home, but I'm glad that I'm aware and I can make small changes to make a difference. All right. I hope you guys have a great week. I love you, and we'll talk to you later.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing whilst you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. Then cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.